Hey everybody, welcome back to Goju Tech Talk. Today, I want to talk about being successful and how important it is to not be triggerable, and then a bunch of other things. And it's such a strange thing, I think, to maybe associate success with this ability to not be triggerable, or to be, maybe we'll also say, to be stoic. I like that. Because at first it seems like these are sort of disconnected ideas. Like, what does being a stoic or not being triggerable have to do with being successful? And I'm going to give you my take, but before I do that, I want us to listen to this gentleman. I found this on Insta a couple days ago, and he's going to talk for maybe a couple of minutes here. And it's amazing, I think, the just pearls he's going to share in such a short period of time. And then we're going to maybe dissect each one of these, and I'll give you my view on them. Many of the things that he's going to share are things that I also share. These are things that I have found in my journey, and I want to share that many of the things that I have here are things that I've learned. I have been taught by other people that have helped me grow, or I've just realized, wow, I'm kind of really dropping the ball here, and I've sought out to be introspective and then become better. So these things that I have, these are not sort of just, I tried to come up with a sort of nonsensical list of things that don't really mean anything to me. These are all, I have dozens, maybe hundreds of stories for each one of these that I've learned, in many cases, the hard way. And I suspect many of you have learned a lot of these the hard way too. And my hope is that by having this list, we can remember. I think experience might be one of the best teachers, but I also think that we can learn from our mistakes, and we can remember to not make those mistakes again if we have a list like this. That experience is the best teacher, but there's this saying that it usually takes people like 7 times or something to start to learn from their failures. And gee, if I could learn it faster than 7 times, like maybe only do it once, that would be great. Or even better, if you can figure out how to learn from other people's mistakes, so you can be like, well, that's not great. What did this person do wrong? And then you figure out very quickly, like, oh, here's what happened, and here's how to avoid this. And I might talk about this. There's a person in particular. It's actually a streamer that I think is sort of a good guy. I foster goodwill, but I think he's made some mistakes recently, and I think I know what I think I have a general sense of some of the mistakes that he's making and why he's having such a big falling out. But I don't know if I want to go into it, because my goal is really not to pick on anyone, and that's not why I would do this here. But I also don't know necessarily if he's in a place to hear these things, because if he was, I think that there might be some corrections already, given some of the things that he's gone through. Anyway, I'm not sure. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But without further ado, let's listen to this guy. Sorry, I don't know what his name is, but I've heard him speak many times, and this one in particular is just hats off. Here we go.
Most successful people in the world are the people that can self-soothe. So can you avoid being triggered? If you're being triggered and you look outward and you're angry at the person that triggered you, that's weakness. You are manifesting weakness, and you have to go, ooh, someone has triggered me. That means I have an insecurity around this thing. I need to address my insecurity, and then that's going to put you in a far more powerful position to move forward. So the people that are successful, they can self-soothe, they can stay emotionally calm in the midst of a storm. When everybody else is panicking, they're only looking at solutions. And that's the other thing about the no bullshit, what would it take game. The whole point is to switch you out of problem mode into solution mode. Most people can only see, these are the 152 ways that this could go wrong. And we started doing that to say, no matter how outrageous, there is a way to pull this off. So what would need to be true for this to work? Stop telling me all the things that aren't going to work. Tell me the thing that is going to work. And successful people are about that. They are good decision makers. They are hyper resilient. They don't stop at failure. They don't get in their own way from an ego perspective. They're looking nakedly at their own inadequacies. And they've got enough confidence to get people going behind them. The most successful people in the world are the people that can self-soothe. So can you avoid being triggered? If you're being triggered and you look outward and you're angry at the person that triggered you, that's weakness.
Okay. Let's maybe start with this first one. So he's saying that if he's talking about being able to self-soothe, this idea you can kind of just regulate yourself. And if you don't have this ability, if you are somehow being impacted by other people and they're triggering you, they're causing you to sort of lose your cool, lose your ability to control your emotions, then that is what he's saying is that's on you. That's weakness. Now, I want to start by saying I realize this whole notion of being triggered is complicated, and different people have different degrees of trauma. We are a little soundbite-y here, but in order to deliver this content, I think you got to get sort of the general idea. So for sure, there are corner cases where it's more complex and someone may have a very strong like mental disorder, or they are living through PTSD or other forms of anxieties, and it's not as simple as just be a stoic, right? I get that. And for those cases, like, I think there's more work to do. But for a lot of cases, a lot of the people that I know that are easy to trigger, it's like they just have not necessarily come to terms in many cases with their own weaknesses. And that's why I think they tend to be triggerable. What I mean by this is that I have many weaknesses, right? Like, so we could sit here and iterate. Let's say Goju weaknesses. What are some? Talk too much. Sometimes use strong claims, meaning to use weak ones. Can be short sometimes and sound mean. Can be judgy at times. What else can... This one's tough. I was going to say I have really high standards and that sometimes I expect too much. I don't know. I mean, yes, this is true. But, oh, yeah, maybe we'll add this. Can sometimes meander more than he should. Okay. These are some. There's many more. Okay. Now, one of the things that I think make people untriggerable is if they are fully aware of their weaknesses. So, for example, you take any of these weaknesses here, that I talk too much. Sometimes I use strong claims when I meant to use weak ones. Sometimes I'm short and I sound mean. I can be judgy and I meander. Imagine that someone comes and says, Goju, you talk too much. I know I talk too much. Thank you, right? Like, let's work on this, and I'm going to try to be better. Notice that it's not triggering me because I'm aware of it. I'm introspective. Then this is extremely important, this notion of introspection. This is one of the keys to not being triggerable. And we have this over here somewhere about being introspective. There's many reasons why you want to be introspective. One of the key things is that when you're introspective, you have visibility into your weaknesses. You're aware of what you're doing wrong. Does it mean that you can fix those things? Not necessarily. That has more to do with growth. And having the ability to grow it starts with identifying the thing I think that you want to grow in. And then it requires you to do things like this, persist through adversity, because if you already do this is arguably like a habit that you have and something that you should maybe try to not have be habitual, which means you're probably going to fail because you're going to try to break a habit and you're probably going to try and not succeed. So you're going to have to do these things, and you're going to have to do this over and over, and then eventually you might overcome this. So being able to resolve your weaknesses is more than just being introspective. But being introspective, I think, is one of the keys to not being triggerable. Because when you know that you have weaknesses, you're well aware and you're okay with those. Like you'd like to fix these things, but it's not a surprise to you. Then when people tell you that you have these things, you can kind of just be like, yeah, you're right. Sometimes I am a little short and I sound mean. So someone says, and sometimes people say this, Goju, like, did you wake up on the wrong side of the bed? Like, why are you being so short with me? Like, why are you being a jerk? And then I'll say, yeah, you're right. I'm being a little, I apologize. I'm tired. I'm just don't have much time. So I'm not trying to be mean to you. I've got a lot going on. It's not an excuse. I should be better. Notice that there's no kind of deflecting. I'm not trying to in any way say that they're wrong, because oftentimes if people tell me this, they're right, because this is one of my weaknesses. I know I do this. Same thing with being judgy, right? Like, this one's on the list in perpetuity. Part of the reason for this is not like I'm trying to show, I'm so elevated. I'm such an enlightened Buddhist and Stoic. I can have my flaws in front of everybody and it's like a flex move. It's not that at all. It's there to remind me, actually, so that when I'm doing these VODs and sometimes I go and I lean in too hard, which I think some of you have probably seen. I think I did this a little bit even in the last video where I was watching it thinking, ooh, I mean, as many of you have seen, I'm a pretty passionate person. Yeah, that's probably, yeah. Let's add this. Fine line between passion and emotions controlling you. You need to be careful about this, that I'm very passionate, and I think passion is oftentimes a really good thing in order to be successful, but sometimes that fire can lead to emotional control, and your rational mind can stop. So that's another weakness that I have. And so any of these, you could approach me and talk to me about these, and I would agree with you and say yes. And the reason why I'm not triggerable is, one, I try really hard to be introspective. So I'm thinking deeply about, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? How can I be better? I just want to be better. Like, this is another part that I think is super important about successful people. They generally do not care at all if they are right, but they do deeply care about being better. It's the whole small footsteps thing, right? It's like, I'm going to be honest, I'm starting to have a bit of an addiction to creating these VODs. And part of that is I feel good after I complete a VOD. I don't necessarily feel great leading into it and then doing it, but once it's done, there's a sense of accomplishment that it's like I've cleaned my room. You know, this is the Jordan Peterson thing. Clean your room. Do your dishes. Do your laundry. These things give us dopamine hits. It's like why people will say, create a to-do list and then write the things down. And then after you do the thing, check it, mark it off. These are really good ways to give you sort of these boosts. And so I'm getting a little bit of this kind of reinforcement. And to be honest, it's good and it's bad. It's good in the sense that it's keeping me on target in terms of doing the VODs. It could be bad if there's other things that I need to do that are higher priority and I'm not doing them. Now, my hope is that I am still doing those things, but I need to be careful here, right? And so this could be another one is sometimes leans into things he enjoys rather than things he needs to do. Enjoys doing. This is my OCD kicking in. Yeah. So this is another weakness that I have. And that's nowhere close to an exhaustive list. There's many more. This is, I think, one of the best ways to not become triggerable, is to really understand what your weaknesses are and come to terms with them. A lot of this, I think, stems from the idea of two core principles in order to be introspective and then be kind of okay. Is that, so it's like principle number one, you are enough. These two principles, I think, in conjunction. The first principle is reminding us that, yeah, we should always, well, I try to always, but I think it can be very helpful to try and grow. But that doesn't mean that where you are today is not sufficient for where you need to be today. And a lot of this has to do with this notion of we should, I think, be striving toward becoming better human beings, but we shouldn't berate ourselves in such a way that we look at ourselves and we say, I'm awful, I'm terrible, I'm not enough, and I can't do the thing that I'm supposed to be doing. We don't want to be in that spot, because that negative talk, I think, is not super helpful. Instead, it can be that we are enough, and we are who we are today. So just go with that. But we can grow and we can become better. So you start with this idea of where I am right now is where I am. So, and this has taken a lot of work to get here. So it's good. Now that I believe in myself and I'm like excited about all the work that I put into to get where I am, now let's try to take things a little bit forward. Not because we aren't enough, but because everyone can be better. We can all be better. We're doing small footsteps every day. It's this notion that you are enough for who you are today, but you should be growing so you're a better version of yourself tomorrow. Or the version of yourself that you are today is better than the version of yourself that you were yesterday. And again, comparison to anyone but you is oftentimes a thief of joy. So really just try to do this. Seriously, this is a really good one in my mind. It's great to know what's going on in the world, but you haven't lived their life. They haven't lived your life. And so you could be further along in some areas compared to them. They could be further along in some areas compared to you. It doesn't matter. It's you're not them, they're not you. And so admiring people and being happy for their success is great. But comparing yourself to people to either make yourself feel bad because you're not as accomplished as them, or to judge people and make yourself feel good because you're better, both of those things I think are bad. They both send the wrong message. And by the way, me being judgy, I want to be clear, my judginess is oftentimes not meant like I'm sitting around thinking, oh, I'm better than this person, I'm better than that person, I'm just generally better. That's not it at all. The judgy part is I often think of things as being very simple. I don't think I don't think things are hard. This is through decades of evidence and experience and accomplishing things. And so I have a view in the world that there's sort of, and this is going to probably sound arrogant. I don't mean it arrogantly. I just mean I have this view based on a ton of evidence that there's not much that I think I can't do. I think basically anything that I set my mind to, I can probably do. And it's not that I'm special. It's that I'm very committed and I do these things. I show up. I never stop growing. I am data-driven. I'm introspective. I'm, making fun of myself, so I try to keep my ego down. I persist. I do small footsteps. And then all these things together, it's just like, yeah, you end up being able to do quite a bit. So then what happens is, because it's so simple for me, then when I work with folks, either at the university or the company or just in life, my inner circle, sometimes they will get stuck on things and it will confuse me because I generally don't get stuck on things. Like, I'm not trying to say that everything comes easy. It doesn't. It takes a lot of work. But once I start working on something, I just kind of dedicate myself to it. And I feel like, oh, I'm growing every day. Like learning how to do this whole vodding thing. I don't know what I'm doing, but maybe in 10 years I will. And I'm learning new stuff. Like I said, I was going to try to figure out the mic and the audio. And I think I maybe a little bit sort of have figured that out. I mean, we'll see. It's probably not perfect, but it's way better than it was before. So the point is, I can look at this and say, yeah, I am growing. And I didn't know this a month ago or a week ago. In fact, I was actually watching, just as an aside, I was watching some of the old videos and, oh boy, wow, the setup that I had was not super great. The voice was bad, the lighting was bad, the camera was bad. It was just like it's like a comedy of errors. It's a list of all the things you should not be doing. I was doing, and I thought about, should I delete these? And I thought, no, let's leave those on there. those need to stay up there because it's part of the whole growth thing, is that this reinforces this idea that I'm persisting through adversity and I'm making mistakes, and I'm claiming, I'm owning my mistakes. I'm seeking them out, and showing others that, like, it's okay to fail. You should try to do things that push you beyond your limits, because it's usually a sign that you're growing. And so basically I made the conclusion that no, I'm not going to delete it, even though in my mind it might be like a little bit embarrassing. So regarding not being triggerable, my view, my honest view is, and again, this doesn't cover the whole gamut, but I believe that to avoid being triggerable, one of the first things that's very helpful is to be introspective and then understand your weaknesses and come to terms with these principles. Then, if someone calls you out on the things that you know that you need work on, you are aware and say, yeah, I have this problem, but also I'm enough, right? I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress. We're all a work in progress. And anybody that tries to argue that they're not a work in progress, I have certain rules about the people that I'll hang out with, and anybody that kind of has this view of like, I'm done, I don't need to grow anymore, I'm a finished product, I find these people very uninteresting, and they tend to not work well with me because I am constantly pushing the boundaries of what is possible. And so even if they were perfect yesterday, more likely than not today they're not. So yeah, I think that you really need to have this second one as far as growing. So then you have these in mind, and then someone approaches you and mention these things, and you're kind of like, yeah, that's a weakness that I have. I'm working on it. So thank you, and let's monitor it together. Like, you're not trying to rebut them because you don't have a defensive posture. Then, in cases where they mention something that you're fairly certain is not a weakness, you simply say that. You say, and I've had people do this. They've come to me and said, oh, Goju, you do this. You have this view, and you feel this way, or you do this thing. And then I'll say, yeah, I don't think that I do that. Can you provide me some evidence where I've done this thing? Because if I do it, I would like to be aware of it and then stop doing it. Because if I do this thing that's bad, which we both agree is bad, I should stop. But I'm data-driven. And so in order for me to rectify a behavior, I need a concrete example of the thing that I'm doing wrong. I need to know what the example is. Generally, what I find for people that are highly introspective, you can mention their weaknesses and they immediately are like, yep, I do that. You don't even need to give them examples. I could give you hundreds. I'm working on this. In the cases where they're introspective and it's not something that they have a weakness, they'll ask for examples, and oftentimes there will be no examples because it's not one of their weaknesses. They know their weaknesses. They've already listed them. They have a deep understanding and appreciation of things that they need to grow in, and so when you approach them with those things, they already know. When you approach them with things that are not on their list, because they're so introspective, they can often call BS and be like, yeah, I don't think I do this. But again, weak claims, this is a good thing about people that are not triggerable, tend to stay away from strong claims. And part of that is no ego. That oftentimes what I find is people that have egos, and again, an ego is almost always, it's insecurity. It's just insecurity. Is you're afraid. And so what people will often do that have fragile egos is they will often speak in definitive terms, strong claims, on things that are weak claims. That should be weak claims. They will turn their opinions into facts because they don't want to be challenged on those things. Because being challenged on those things might imply that they're wrong. And if they're wrong, that could hurt their fragile ego. Whereas again, people that don't have egos, they don't care about being wrong. They don't care about being right. They just want to be better. And so if they have a view that's not correct, they want to know about that. They want to say, maybe if I'm misunderstanding something, please help me. Like, let's work on this together, and I should figure this out. So it's a much more open conversation, and they'll present things in a much weaker way because they're okay being challenged. When things are facts, then they'll probably use strong claims, but it'll be very clear that this is something that is a fact. Like, for example, if someone were to ask me what I'm drinking, I would say, I'm drinking a Coke Zero. I don't think I would say, I think I'm drinking a Coke Zero. I do think I am drinking a Coke Zero, but like it says right here, this is a Coke Zero. So I think this is a fact. It's not an opinion. Now, if someone were to ask me how I'm feeling, I might say, I think I'm feeling this way or that way. I'm feeling a little hot. I'm feeling a little tired. But it may be prefaced more as a weak claim because I'm actually not entirely sure. I'd have to sit down and think about it and try to assess my feelings, right? Because these are not these concrete factual data points. Another example is if someone asks you things that are, again, objective truths. Where are you right now, Goju? I am at home. Are you sure? Because you could actually be somewhere else. Well, based on the physical reality that I think I live in, yeah, I think that. And again, if we matrix out, like, okay, maybe I'm not, it's a projection simulation, but based in this world that we're in, I think that I'm at home. And so on and so forth. Like, what is your home? What's your age? These are things that are sort of what we consider facts, whereas these other things are opinions, and we should qualify them this way. In fact, the streamer guy that I was referring to, one of the things he seemed to be running into is he was confusing his opinions of things with facts. And so let me see if I can say this in a way. I don't want to mention his name, but he was running into some struggles with other people, and he was making a comment of like they were all doing the wrong thing, and I didn't make any mistakes. Like, that's tough, right? Like, you might be able to prove or demonstrate that you didn't make any mistakes, but that goes back to this whole ego thing. It's this idea of perfection. It's this notion of, hey there. It's this notion of being flawless, right? It's the ego thing. I think someone that has no ego, that's introspective, would instead not say things like, they're all wrong and I didn't make any mistakes. I think instead what they might say is, I probably could have done better, but I was frustrated because I felt like the people that I was with also could have done better. This is so much easier, I think, for people to swallow, because the first thing is you point the accountability and the responsibility to yourself. This is also why this is on this list. Be responsible. Super important. Super important. When you're a responsible human being, people will quickly see this, And they will likely start to trust you more because they see that you are responsible, that you are accountable, that when you make mistakes, you're going to come up and say, I made a mistake. I'm sorry about that. Or this was on me. I'm going to try to be better. It helps people connect with you. And so anyway, going back to this streamer, I think that it was an ego thing. They had an ego. And again, ego, it's not like you're confident. It's the opposite. An ego means you're insecure. At least this is the way that I think about it. If you are really confident about something, you just know that you have this thing that you don't need to brag about. You don't need to talk about all this stuff. You don't need to say, I'm a super fit athlete. You just kind of know that you're a super fit athlete. Like you don't need to say these things. Why would you say it? You would say it if you needed external validation. Right? Now, if someone is asking you something like, well, how many marathons have you run? And you're like, well, I've run a few. And they're like, well, what's a few? Like, give me a number. If you tell them, well, okay, I ran, this is the number, this is different, right? Because you're not volunteering information that's not being asked for. You're not like saying, oh, well, I have a doctorate in this and I have this many publications and blah, blah, blah. Like they're specifically asking and you're sharing. And in my mind, that is not bragging. You're just trying to provide data, right? It's going back to this being data-driven. So it's largely contextual, but people that have no ego, they don't need to sit around and talk about, I think, how these other people are wrong and how you're right, because that has a lot to do with this piece and it has very little to do with this piece. That what I think really successful people want to do is they just want to be better. Every day they want to be better. And so being right actually means they're probably not being better, because being right means oftentimes they're not growing. Instead, what they want to do is seek out failures, figure out what they're not doing right, and then fix those things so then they can be better. And then tomorrow they can be even more successful than they were today. So hopefully this is starting to make a little bit of sense, and it goes a little bit into, I think, what he's talking about here on not being triggerable, is that you know that if something someone else says can cause an emotional reaction in you, that's on you. No one really should have that power. Not with words anyway. Like if they say, you're a terrible dresser, or, like the argument I think that people use is if someone comes up to you and says, you have the worst blue hair, you'd kind of be like, okay, my hair is not blue, but thanks. And you kind of just shrug it off, right? So then along the same lines, if someone comes up to you and says, you are such a liar, and you know that you're not a liar, then why would this bother you? It shouldn't. And then on top of that, if you're introspective and they say things that you know that you do, then you just, yep. Like there's no reason to hide these things. We're all a work in progress. Again, that has to do with the whole ego thing. The ego thing is that you need to know that you're right. When you think that you have to be right, you don't want to have these things, because these things mean you're wrong. These things mean you're not perfect. And people with big egos, they can't have this because they're insecure. This is, the general sense is that they have insecurity, and that insecurity is they aren't enough. And so then they're trying to essentially put up a wall and be like, I am enough. I am perfect. And so I have to be right all the time. I'm not a work in progress. And any evidence or anyone that gives me the contrary of this, I don't want to be around. I don't want to hear it. And that is the opposite of what people that are successful do, because that road is not the road to growth. That's like the most important thing in my mind. This is why egos are so important to get rid of. Is like, if you're insecure, like whatever, like that doesn't really, I mean, it's not a thing that I'm super concerned with. But if you want to be really successful and you want to achieve greatness, the reason why you really want to get rid of your ego, in my mind, is that this is going to stop you from growing. It's going to hold you back significantly. This is like one of the biggest things that holds people back. It's that they're afraid that they're not enough. And frankly, you're not enough, right? You want to be better. And that's not a bad thing. Like, okay, yes. See here, I can even make fun of myself. What I mean is, you are enough for who you are. You should like accept that this is who you are today. But you should be striving toward becoming better for tomorrow. Okay, so that's the response that I have for being triggerable. And generally speaking, I think if you really want to be wildly successful, find a way to not let anyone trigger you. And I think the key to that is be introspective, know what your weaknesses are, come to terms with those, own those, and pretty much and follow these two principles. This is what I think has really helped me not be triggerable. Is people will tell me things, crazy things, and either they're right, and so I'll agree with them, or they're wrong. And then I'll just be like, yeah, I don't think that that's the case. Where's the evidence? And then they won't supply evidence because it's not a real thing. And then they'll be like, well, I can't think of an example right now. And then I'll say, okay, well, feel free to come back when you have an example. Because the truth is, like, I might have a blind spot. It might be something I'm not aware of. And if there is something real, I would like to know. But again, I try very hard to be introspective. And so oftentimes, if they're raising something that I haven't thought of, it's usually that it's not real. And so I've done this numerous times, and I'll just say, like, can you please give me the evidence? And some people will say, oh, well, I don't want this to be petty and a he said, she said. And it'll be like, no, that's not what it's about. This is about giving concrete evidence to help people grow, and that we need evidence. We're data driven. We need evidence to understand what we're doing wrong concretely so we can change that behavior. If we say that, oh, you just do this thing, and then you say, okay, can you give me an example? And they can't give you even one example, then how do they know you do this? How do you know that you do this? There's a good chance that you don't. So ask for the example. Okay, let's continue on.
You are manifesting weakness, and you have to go, ooh, someone has triggered me. That means I have an insecurity around this thing. I need to address my insecurity.
Right. So you get triggered, and this is your ego, right? Ego is insecurity. And so, again, if anyone can get a charge out of you by saying something like, you're a terrible driver, like, oh, you're a terrible driver, or, forget you, I'm an amazing driver. Why did you get so triggered? Is it possible that the reason why you got so triggered is that deep down you kind of know that you aren't a great driver and that you have insecurity about it, and they're right? And if that's the case, add that to your list. Have that be something that you want to improve upon. Again, these things are not static. These weaknesses, these are just things that you do today. These are things that you can fix. That's the whole point of growth. That's also why we write them down so we understand what they are. My list, this is not exhaustive, but there are many, many other items that were on this list when I was 16 years old. Enormous list. And slowly I've tried to chip away and fix these things. Okay.
And then that's going to put you in a far more powerful position to move forward. So the people that are successful, they can self-soothe, they can stay emotionally calm in the midst of the storm. When everybody else is panicking, they're only looking at solutions. And that's the other thing about the no bullshit, what would it take game. The whole point is to switch you out of problem mode into solution mode. Most people can.
The other thing that he's talking about is when you're in a situation you're trying to succeed, oftentimes when you're very confident, not arrogant, but confident, and you are not triggerable, when bad things happen, you don't panic because you expect bad things to happen. Bad things will happen all the time. Also, because you don't have an ego, you don't have insecurity about these things. And so when things go wrong, you don't have the need to place blame. This is oftentimes what I see a lot of people that are very insecure do, is they immediately are looking around to figure out who to blame so the blame doesn't come to them. Whereas I think really confident people, very strong leaders, they'll immediately be like, okay, so we have a crisis. Let's not worry about blame assignment. That's not helpful. Minimally, let's just say, this is my fault, okay? Everyone, you can blame me. Now, let's deal with that later. Right now, we have to solve this problem. So let's start talking about solutions. This is what someone that is not triggerable will be able to do, is they won't panic. They'll understand the urgency of the situation. Their ego won't get in the way because they know that they're good enough and that they make mistakes. They're not perfect. And so maybe they were part of the reason why this went sideways. But dwelling on that right now in the midst of the storm is not helpful. You deal with that later. So again, this is one of the beautiful things about not being triggerable. In cases where a situation arises, and it's not like a person, that is an event that could trigger people. Like something bad has happened, and now you have that sense of panic, and you get triggered by the event, and now you've lost your ability to think rationally, and it's not great. You definitely do not want this, especially as a leader. Leaders, I think the most successful leaders, is they're not triggerable not only by interactions they have with people, but interactions that they have in life. That life is happening and they're just cool cats. They just can roll with the punches very easily. People can be calling them names. The house can be on fire. There can be like the brink of massive war or other chaotic things. And they're like, okay, this is where we are. Now let's try to go into problem-solving mode to get these things resolved. Like they have an incredible sense of resolve and rationality. And they also can work in these very complex, dire situations with urgency, but not panic. It's really important. Urgency, but not panic. Panic is your emotions are taking over. You are in a state of chaos. You don't know what to do. Your rational mind is shut down. Urgency is, I need to handle this situation very quickly. Otherwise, things might get out of hand. But my rational mind is working. And so I'm going to logically think about what I need to do, what we need to do to resolve this, and then we're going to execute. That's like the fundamental difference. So function with urgency, but never, try your best to never function with panic.
Can only see these are the 152 ways that this could go wrong. And we started doing that to say, no matter how outrageous, there is a way to pull this off. So what would need to be true for this to work? Stop telling me all the things that aren't going to work. Tell me the thing that is going to work. And successful people are about that. They are good decision makers. They are hyper resilient. They don't stop at failure. They don't get in their own way from an ego perspective.
They don't get in their own way from an ego perspective. This is super important too, right? The ego thing, a lot of times it's this idea of being right. The ego, again, is insecurity. And so they, again, is like a poor leadership thing, is they will have a situation that things are going wrong, and they'll quickly try to place blame on other people, or they'll ensure that the blame doesn't come their way. And that is insecurity. That is ego. And this is just going to slow you down. It's going to prevent you from looking at the situation in a rational way to be able to assess if you actually did make a mistake. The second is it's going to prevent you from seeing a situation holistically. This will prevent you from necessarily seeing how to resolve the problem. And sometimes you being you, even though you are amazing, you might have made the mistake. And so fixing it might be that you're the one that needs to change. If you're too insecure to acknowledge that you had this error, then you're going to slow things down. You're going to slow your own growth down. You're going to slow the resolution of the problem down. Yeah.
Nakedly at their own inadequacy.
They're looking nakedly at their own inadequacies. I love this, is that this is super important for being quietly confident, is, again, you are deeply aware of the things that you do wrong. And so if you're in this moment of chaos, you immediately are looking at this saying, oh, in this particular situation, I know that I tend to do this thing. Did I do this thing in this situation? Oh, I did. Shoot. I'm the cause. This is on me, right? Oftentimes, again, people that are really great leaders and have incredible quiet confidence, when things go wrong, the first question they'll ask is, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong, and what can I do to resolve this situation? It won't be about what did everybody else do wrong. It will be looking introspectively at yourself before you ever look at anyone else.
And they've got enough confidence to get people going behind them. The most successful people in the world are the people that can self-soothe. So can you avoid being triggered? If you're being triggered and you look outward and you're angry at the person that triggered you, that's weakness. You are manifesting weakness.
Cool. So I think that we're good on this VOD. I think I've repeated these things. And by the way, I've done this on purpose, largely because I have worked to try to mentor many people, including myself, to overcome some of these things, especially to get to the point to where I'm untriggerable. And truthfully, one of the things that I first started with on this is to not have road rage. This is one of the first things that I did to demonstrate that I was not triggerable. And I think having anxiety when you're driving, again, the whole triggerable thing is, it's funny to say because it's so simple and obvious, but it's not necessarily funny in the moment for a lot of people. When you're triggered, it's just insecurity. It's this, like, your own insecurity of being inadequate is what's causing you to be triggered. And so when I would get triggered in driving, it was that I felt that I could have been doing something wrong. And so rather than looking introspectively, I had so much insecurity about that. I would just look outward and be like, oh, this guy's wrong. Like, oh, you're tailgating me. You cut me off. I didn't do anything wrong. You're wrong. The way to overcome this, again, as a confident person, is in those cases, maybe I was right. Maybe I didn't do anything wrong. Then I know this. Then why would someone else's bad driving trigger me? Okay, so then maybe it has to do with safety. So what you're annoyed with or you're frustrated with is this person is putting you in an unsafe situation. Okay, so then is the response then of you getting angry at them helpful? I don't think so. I think the response then, and this is what I do, because I have thought about this and it feels like the rational thing, when people drive recklessly around me and I feel like they're not being safe, I just pull off the road and get away from them. That feels like the rational thing to do because they are creating an unsafe environment and I don't want to be around that. So I just pull off the road and get away from them. I've removed myself from the situation. And I'm confident enough to know, like, no, I'm a pretty reasonable driver. I don't do these bad things. If someone cuts me off for tailgates, I don't get angry. I don't feel insecure, or I need to throw down and show that I'm a better driver than you. I just think this is unsafe. That's what really matters. And so I'm going to pull off so this person that's tailgating me, they can get ahead. Right? Like, why would you do something different? Why would you slam on the brakes and increase the danger of the situation? That's not like a healthy response. That's you're actually now exacerbating the unsafeness of the situation. You just made it worse. And now you're feeding into your emotions. By the way, this is not a rational response. Slamming on the brakes when someone's tailgating you is not like a rational way to deal with a problem. If anything, all you're doing is you're escalating. You're not de-escalating. This is why pulling off the road is such, in my mind, a rational thing to do, because it de-escalates. Let the person tailgate somebody else. Maybe, and again, if you foster goodwill, you don't know what their situation is. Maybe their wife is sitting in the passenger seat and she's pregnant and they're rushing to the hospital. Maybe there's like someone that is hurt at home and they need to get there. Maybe they're running late for a critical meeting. Like, you can tell yourself stories that actually invert it. So there's a reason why they may be in a rush that would justify them doing this. And then you get out of their way so they can get where they need to go, right? Like, you don't have to immediately make judgments and immediately take some sort of defensive posture. You can just resolve to get out of a bad situation. Because ultimately, again, if you're thinking like a rational human being and you're dealing with the situations that are potentially like causing you some sort of emotional response, if it is like a fight or flight situation, then what you probably need to understand is, what should I do here? If it really is a situation that's dangerous, then I think one of the best things you can do is think rationally, not emotionally, about what the best tactic is for you to resolve the situation. And generally speaking, there's two fundamental approaches. Either you need to fight to survive, or you need to flight to survive. In the case when someone's tailgating you, the risk here is that they might hit your car and you might swerve or something like this. And let's just say that this just started, right? They haven't been following you and whatever. Then in that case, flight seems to me to be like the right answer. Now, notice that choosing flight does not mean you're a coward. It just means that you're rational. Oftentimes, I think what happens is, again, it's an ego thing. Oh, I'm not going to pull off the road because I'm not at fault. This person's at fault. I'm going to stand my ground and be courageous and be tough. Like, I'm not insecure. You are, though, because you're so concerned about how other people think of you, including yourself, that you're choosing the wrong response so you can feel better about yourself. If you really were confident, then you would look at the situation and be like, I should remove myself from the situation. That's the rational thing to do. And pulling off the road does not make me a coward. It just makes me a highly intelligent person that can think logically. So you just do that. But you need to not be triggerable, right? Now, other situations, you will have to do the opposite, is that it might be that, your children are there, someone is breaking into your house, and you have nowhere to go, and you have to say, okay, logically, I need to overcome my emotions, I need to overcome my fear, overcome my insecurities. The only rational way to deal with this situation is to fight. I'm just going to fight. And if I don't fight, if I try to flight, there's no way out. I'll just be a victim, and I'm going to lose. And so the only way I can potentially save myself or my family is to just choose the thing that I'm afraid to do, but I need to overcome my fear. Again, it's just your rational mind playing it out, not allowing yourself to panic, and choosing the right thing. It's very much contextually specific. It's not, I don't know that there's necessarily like general rules that we can follow for this. Anyway.
And you have to go, ooh, someone has triggered me. That means I have an insecurity around this thing. I need to address my insecurity. And then that's going to put you in a far more powerful position to move forward. So the people that are successful, they can self-soothe, they can stay emotionally calm in the midst of the storm. When everybody else is panicking, they're only looking at solutions. And that's the other thing about the no bullshit, what would it take game. The whole point is to switch you out of problem mode into solution mode.
Yeah, another thing that, maybe this is the last comment I'll make. Another thing I see really good leaders do, people that are highly successful, is when they get into these situations, they don't start to enumerate all the problems and all the reasons why they'll fail. They won't immediately look at this and say, this is an untenable situation. There's nothing to do here but lose. We're cooked. We might as well just quit and just give up. Like, for example, let's say that might be the case. Why would you just resign yourself to failure? Like, why would you not at least try something, anything, rather than just being like, we're done. Let's just give up. Because if you're going to fail anyway, why not just go out with a bang and just like try something rather than deciding there is no possible solution to this situation? And that, I think, is one of the bigger differences with people that are very confident, is they will look at the situation and see that it's very challenging and then start to think, okay, here are the things that I can do as actions to potentially overcome this. It doesn't help looking at all the things that are not going to work. I realize there's 1,000 different things that are not going to work. I realize there's 1,000 different things that have gone wrong to lead us here. We're all aware of those things. Let's now talk about solutions, because we have limited time and we need to resolve this. Otherwise, we're in far worse shape. Okay, I feel like I've rambled. I've meandered. Maybe that was one of the weaknesses I was going to add. I'm conflicted with the meandering because, it is in there. Yeah. I feel like sometimes meandering is really good. Sometimes meandering can be bad. I think it's also very contextual. So I do think that sometimes I meander when I shouldn't, but I think that meandering is such a good quality that I allow I need to figure this out. I'm going to spend more time on this. I don't have a solution for this. Because I think meandering is so important to growth, I allow myself to err on the side of meandering more than I should sometimes. Because in my mind, just so you understand the rationality here, in my mind, I think if I don't meander, then what happens is I'm racing to the end and then I don't grow, or I'm not growing as fast. And growing is one of the core principles in my view, because I want to be better. And so meandering is one of the best ways I can get there. On the other hand, there are times where meandering is not helpful. I've been in meetings or in environments where the team or my bosses or the board, whatever, is like, okay, Goju, get to the point. Like, we know their 15 backstories. Can you just summarize it? And so, I don't know. Give me another 100 years. Eventually, maybe I'll figure this out. Work in progress.